Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the Defiant. Through the large windows, he could see enemy ships firing red beams of light across the dark space. The war had been going on for 3 years now. Humans fought against the Zephyrians, strange alien creatures made of living crystal who wanted to kill all life in the galaxy. Jake was tired. His crew was tired. Everyone was tired of fighting. But the Zephyrians kept coming, kept attacking human colonies and ships. They said humans were like a disease that needed to be cleaned from the stars. Jake did not understand why they hated life so much. The battles were hard but fair. Both sides followed the old rules of war. They attacked military bases and armed colonies. They fought soldiers, not families. Children and other innocent people were left alone. That was how civilized beings fought wars. On Earth, far from the fighting, Lisa Carter woke up early like she did every morning. She walked through the quiet halls of the Sunshine Valley Children's Home. This was her world, her life's work. 300 children lived here, all of them orphans because of the war. Lisa had built this place in the green hills of Montana. The children came from all over human space. There was little Danny from Mars. His parents died when the Zephyrians attacked their mining station. Sophie came from Europa, one of Jupiter's moons. Her parents were scientists who died defending their research base. Every child had a story like this. Every child had lost someone to the war. But here in Sunshine Valley, they were safe, they were loved. Lisa made sure of that. She knew every child's name, every birthday, every fear, and every dream. The older kids helped take care of the younger ones. They were family, even if they were not related by blood. The children played in the gardens during the day. They went to school in bright classrooms. They laughed and cried and fought and made up, just like children everywhere. The war felt far away here. Lisa worked hard to keep it that way. Danny was only 6 years old. He liked to draw pictures of spaceships. He said he wanted to be a pilot when he grew up, like his father had been. Sophie was 12 and very smart. She read books about science and asked Lisa a million questions every day. There was baby Tom, who was only 2 and had just learned to walk. He followed Lisa everywhere, calling her Mama. In his office at Fleet Command, Admiral Roy Jackson looked at reports from the war. The numbers were not good, but they were not terrible either. Humans were holding their own against the Zephyrians. They won some battles and lost others. It was a slow, grinding war that might go on for many more years. Roy was an old soldier. He had fought in other wars before this one. He knew that wars were ugly things, but sometimes they were necessary. The Zephyrians had started this fight by attacking human colonies. They had given humans no choice but to fight back. He was reading about a battle near the Centauri system when his communication device started flashing red. Red meant emergency. Roy pressed the button and Lisa Carter's face appeared on the screen. She was crying. Behind her, Roy could see smoke and fire. "Admiral Jackson," Lisa said, her voice shaking. "They hit us. The Zephyrians bombed the orphanage. We have children trapped under the buildings. Please, we need help right now." Roy felt his blood turn to ice. The Zephyrians had attacked the children's home. They had broken the most sacred rule of war. They had targeted innocent children on purpose. "How many?" Roy asked, though he was afraid to hear the answer. "I don't know," Lisa sobbed. "The whole East Wing came down. That's where the little ones sleep. Danny and Tom and so many others. I can hear them crying, but I can't reach them." Roy was already calling for rescue ships. "Hold on, Lisa. Help is coming. How many children were in the building when it was hit?" "All of them," she whispered. It was nighttime. They were all asleep. The rescue ships reached Earth in 2 hours. That was the fastest anyone had ever made the trip from the fleet base to the home planet. But it felt like forever to the people, waiting on the ground. When the first rescue teams arrived, they found hell. The beautiful children's home was now a pile of broken concrete and twisted metal. Fires burned everywhere. The smell of smoke filled the air, and from under the rubble came the sounds that would haunt the rescuers for the rest of their lives. The crying of trapped children. The rescue teams worked for 18 hours straight. They pulled survivors from the wreckage one by one. Some children were hurt but alive. Others were not so lucky. The rescuers, tough soldiers who had seen many battles, cried as they carried small bodies from the ruins. Lisa Carter was found in the basement, covering 3 toddlers with her own body. The ceiling had fallen on her, but she had saved the babies. She died protecting them, just like she had lived protecting all the children in her care. Danny was pulled out alive, but his legs were broken. Sophie was found unconscious but breathing. Baby Tom was gone. So many others were gone. The final count was terrible. 237 children had died. Only 63 survived, and many of them were badly hurt. The news spread across human space faster than any ship could travel. Every colony, every space station, every human settlement received the pictures and videos from Sunshine Valley. They saw the broken building. They saw the small coffins. They saw the list of names that went on and on. The galaxy watched as humanity's sadness turned into something else, something darker and more dangerous. The humans had been fighting a civilized war following the rules showing mercy to prisoners, but the Zephyrians had crossed a line that should never be crossed. They had murdered children in their beds. Military bases across human space. Soldiers watched the news broadcasts in silence. Many of them had children of their own. Others remembered being children themselves, safe in their beds, trusting that the adults would keep them safe. That trust had been broken. Those children had died because the adults failed to protect them. Captain Jake Morrison received the news aboard the Defiant. He was in his quarters trying to sleep after a long day of fighting. His second-in-command, Lieutenant Chris Davis, woke him up with the report. "Sir, you need to see this," Chris said, his voice tight with anger. Jake watched. The footage from Earth. He saw the broken building, the crying parents, the endless line of small coffins. He thought about his own daughter back home, safe in her bed because she lived on Earth where the war could not reach her. Except now it had reached her. It had reached all of them. "Those monsters," Chris whispered. "They killed babies." Jake nodded, but he did not speak. He was thinking about what this meant. The war had just changed. The rules were gone now. The Zephyrians had started something they could not finish. All across human space, the same scene played out. Families gathered around their screens, watching the news from Earth. Children asked their parents why the bad aliens had hurt the other children. Parents struggled to find answers that made sense. But in the military bases and government buildings, a different conversation was taking place. Admiral Roy Jackson called an emergency meeting of all fleet commanders. President Helen Rodriguez gathered her advisors in the war room. Scientists and weapons experts received urgent calls to report for duty. The humans were about to show the galaxy what they could do when someone hurt their children. The Zephyrians had wanted to break human spirit by attacking the innocent. Instead, they had awakened something terrible and unstoppable. The day the stars wept was the day humanity learned to hate. President Helen Rodriguez walked into the great assembly hall on Earth. Behind her was a huge screen showing the faces of every child who died at Sunshine Valley. 237 faces looked down at the silent room. Some were smiling, in their school pictures. Others looked serious. All of them were gone forever. Helen had not slept in 3 days. Her eyes were red from crying, but her voice was steady and strong. She looked out at the assembly members from every human world. Politicians, military leaders, and colony representatives all waited to hear what she would say. 3 days ago, the Zephyrians declared war on our children, Helen began. Her words echoed in the quiet hall. They did not attack our soldiers or our ships. They did not target our weapons or our bases. They chose to murder innocent children while they slept in their beds. She pointed at the screen behind her. These children trusted us to keep them safe. We failed them, but we will not fail their memory. Today, everything changes. Helen paused and looked around the room. Every face was watching her. Some people were crying. Others looked angry enough to break things with their bare hands. "I am declaring Total War Protocol 7, Helen announced. "Every human, every resource, every ship and weapon we have will be used for one purpose. We will completely destroy the Zephyrian race, not just their military, not just their government, all of them. Every single one." The assembly hall erupted. Some people cheered, others gasped in shock. Total War Protocol 7 had never been used before. It meant that humanity would use every weapon they had, no matter how terrible. It meant they would fight until their enemy was extinct. Colonel Frank Murphy sat in his secure office deep underground. He had just received the most important order of his military career. The president wanted him to open Project Prometheus. For 20 years, Frank had guarded humanity's most dangerous secrets, weapons so powerful that previous leaders had locked them away and hoped they would never be needed. Frank entered his security codes and placed his hand on the scanner. Heavy doors opened to reveal laboratories filled with devices that could destroy entire planets. Antimatter bombs that could vaporize moons. Gravity weapons that could collapse stars. Biological agents designed to kill specific alien species. Dr. Blake, report to Lab 7 immediately. Frank spoke into his communicator. Bring your research on Zephyrian biology. We have work to do. Dr. Susan Blake had studied alien life forms for 15 years. She was a peaceful scientist who wanted to understand how different species lived and grew. But when she saw the pictures from the orphanage, something changed inside her. Now she wanted to understand how to make the Zephyrians die. Susan looked at the glass containers holding captured Zephyrian tissue samples. The crystalline structures were beautiful, refracting light into rainbow patterns. But beauty meant nothing now. She needed to find their weaknesses. Computer, begin analysis of silicon-carbon lattice disruption methods, she commanded. The laboratory's artificial intelligence started running thousands of calculations. Soon, Susan would know exactly how to design a weapon that would dissolve Zephyrian bodies from the inside out. Across human space, recruitment centers were overwhelmed with volunteers. Old soldiers came out of retirement. Teenagers lied about their age to join the military. Entire families signed up to help the war effort in any way they could. Captain Jake Morrison stood in the shipyard orbiting Mars, watching workers install new weapons on the Defiant. His ship was being transformed from a normal warship into something designed specifically to hunt and kill Zephyrians. The new guns could fire special ammunition that would shatter crystalline armor. The torpedo tubes were being loaded with weapons that had never been tested in battle. How long until the upgrades are finished? Jake asked the chief engineer. 12 hours, Captain, the engineer replied. But sir, some of these weapons violate the Galactic War conventions. Are you sure about this? Jake thought about little Danny drawing pictures of spaceships. He thought about baby Tom learning to walk. He thought about Lisa Carter dying to protect 3 toddlers. The Zephyrians violated something more important than conventions when they murdered those children, Jake said. Install every weapon we have, and make sure they all work perfectly. On the planet New Geneva, the largest weapons factory in human space worked day and night. The production lines that once made farming equipment and construction tools now produced guns and bombs. Workers who had never seen a weapon before learned to build instruments of death. Manager Pete Carson watched the production numbers climb, higher every day. His factory had tripled output in just 1 week. People worked 18-hour shifts without complaining. Everyone wanted to help destroy the aliens who had killed the children. Sir, we have a problem, his assistant Mary told him. We're running out of rare metals for the advanced ammunition. Then strip them from civilian products, Pete ordered. Take apart entertainment systems, communication devices, anything that has the metals we need. Nothing is more important than making weapons right now. In the research centers of Europa, scientists worked on projects they had only dreamed about before. Dr. William Chen led a team developing faster-than-light communication systems for the military. His colleague, Dr. Jennifer White, designed new types of armor that could protect human soldiers from Zephyrian weapons. But the most important work was happening in the biological warfare labs. Dr. Susan Blake had made a breakthrough. She found a way to create a virus that would attack the unique crystalline structure of Zephyrian bodies. The virus would spread from one alien to another, dissolving their physical forms until nothing remained but dust. The weapon is ready for testing, Susan reported to Colonel Murphy. We need live subjects. You'll have them, Murphy promised. Our forces captured 3 Zephyrian prisoners last week. They're being transported to the testing facility now. Susan felt a moment of doubt. She had become a scientist to preserve life, not destroy it. But then she remembered the footage from the orphanage. She remembered the small coffins and the crying parents. Her doubt disappeared. Admiral Roy Jackson received reports from across human space. Ship production had increased by 400%. Weapon manufacturing was at levels not seen since the ancient wars on Earth. Most importantly, human morale was higher than ever. The attack on the children had united humanity like nothing else ever had. "Sir, we're receiving surrender offers from several Zephyrian colonies," his aide reported. "They want to negotiate peace terms." Roy looked at the message displays. The aliens were offering to pay for rebuilding the orphanage. They promised to withdraw from disputed territories. Some even offered to turn over the commanders who had ordered the attack on the children. "Send the same reply to all of them," Roy commanded. "We don't accept surrenders. We don't negotiate with child killers. Tell them to prepare for total war." President Helen Rodriguez met with the leaders of other human colonies. The Mars governor, the Europa Assembly, and the representatives from dozens of outer worlds all agreed. Humanity would fight as one species with one goal. "The factory ships are ready to begin construction," reported General Scott Adams. "We can build new warships faster than ever before. Our industrial capacity is now focused entirely on military production." "What about the civilian population?" asked Governor Lisa Park from the Alpha Centauri system. "They're demanding news updates constantly. Everyone wants to know when we'll strike back." Helen nodded. "Let them know. Broadcast our preparations. Show the galaxy that we're coming for the Zephyrians. I want every alien species to see what happens when someone hurts human children." The transformation of human society was complete and terrifying. Art galleries displayed pictures of destroyed Zephyrian ships. Musicians wrote songs about revenge for the orphans. Children played games where they pretended to hunt crystal aliens through space. Captain Jake Morrison received his new orders aboard the upgraded Defiant. His ship was now part of Hunter-Killer Group Alpha, one of 12 task forces being created to attack deep into Zephyrian space. The orders were simple and brutal. "Find Zephyrians, kill them all, leave nothing alive." "Sir, these orders don't mention anything about prisoners or civilians," Lieutenant Chris Davis observed. "That's because we won't be taking any prisoners," Jake replied. "And after what they did to our children, there are no Zephyrian civilians. They're all enemies now." The war machine that humanity had built was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Other species had fought wars for territory or resources. They had conquered planets and enslaved populations, but they had never tried to completely eliminate another intelligent species. Humanity was about to show the galaxy something new. They were going to demonstrate what happened when a peaceful species decided that peace was no longer possible. The aliens had wanted to break human spirit by attacking children. Instead, they had created a monster that would not stop until every last Zephyrian was dead. The Iron Decree had been issued. Total war was coming, and the stars themselves would burn before humanity let the murder of their children go unanswered. 6 months after the children died at Sunshine Valley, the Zephyrian collective began to understand their terrible mistake. What they thought would break human spirit had instead created something the galaxy had never seen before. Humanity was no longer fighting a war. They were hunting an entire species to extinction. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Defiant, deep in Zephyrian space. His ship looked nothing like it had before the orphanage attack. New weapons covered every surface. The hull was painted black to blend with the darkness between stars. This was no longer a ship built for defense. It was built for killing. "Captain, we have a target," Lieutenant Chris Davis reported from his station. On the main screen appeared a Zephyrian colony ship. It was beautiful, made of living crystal that caught starlight and turned it into rainbow patterns. Inside were 50,000 aliens trying to escape the war. Jake felt nothing as he looked at the ship. Once he might have felt sorry for the families aboard. He might have thought about children and innocent people trying to find safety. But that was before Zephyrians murdered human children in their sleep. "Are there any military vessels escorting the colony ship?" Jake asked. No, sir, it's completely defenseless. Our sensors show mostly families and elderly Zephyrians aboard. Jake nodded. Lock all weapons on target. Fire everything we have. I want nothing left but dust. The Defiant unleashed its full firepower. Antimatter torpedoes struck first, tearing massive holes in the crystal hull. Then came the quantum disruptors, weapons that dissolved the very atoms that made up Zephyrian bodies. The beautiful colony ship lasted only seconds before it became a cloud of glittering particles drifting in space. There were no escape pods. Jake had made sure of that. His orders were clear. No survivors, no mercy, no exceptions. On the planet, Kepler 442b, General Paul Stevens commanded the largest invasion force in human history. 2 million Federation Marines had landed on this Zephyrian colony world. Their mission was simple: kill every alien on the planet. The Zephyrian cities were works of art, built from living crystal that grew into impossible shapes. Towers reached toward the sky like frozen music. Gardens of crystal flowers created beauty beyond human imagination. It was the most beautiful planet Paul had ever seen. Burn it all, he ordered. The Marines moved through the cities with weapons, designed specifically to kill Zephyrians, sonic disruptors that shattered crystal bodies, acid sprayers that dissolved their living structures, flame units that turned their beautiful cities into pools of melted glass. Colonel Amy Johnson led the assault on the residential district. Her soldiers found families hiding in their crystal homes. Zephyrian children, if they could be called. Children cowered behind their parents. The aliens made strange musical sounds that might have been pleas for mercy. "Sir, what do we do with the civilians?" Amy asked over the radio. "There are no civilians," Paul replied coldly. "They chose to make this war about children. Now they get to see what that means." Amy nodded and gave the order. Her Marines opened fire. The crystal families dissolved under the barrage of human weapons. Their musical voices were cut short. The beautiful homes collapsed into rubble. In the capital city, Mayor Zixtal tried to surrender. The Zephyrian leader broadcast a message, offering complete capitulation. The aliens would become slaves if humans would spare their lives. They would pay any price, accept any punishment, give up anything humans wanted. General Paul Stevens listened to the surrender offer and deleted it without responding. There would be no surrender, no negotiation, no mercy. By the end of the day, Kepler 442b was silent. 2 billion Zephyrians had lived on this world when the sun rose. When it set, none remained alive. The crystal cities were melted ruins. The gardens were ash. Even the planet's crystal-eating insects had been hunted down and eliminated. Back on Earth, Dr. Susan Blake watched the test results from her biological weapon. The crystal death virus had exceeded all expectations. In laboratory conditions, it killed captured Zephyrians in less than 6 hours. The aliens dissolved from the inside out, their crystalline structure breaking down at the molecular level. "The weapon is ready for deployment," Susan reported to Colonel Frank Murphy. "We can load it into atmospheric dispersal units and drop it on Zephyrian worlds. Every alien on a planet would be dead within a week." Frank nodded grimly. "How many units can you produce?" "As many as you need. The manufacturing process is simple. Once you have the base virus, we could sterilize 50 worlds simultaneously if required. Do it. I want enough crystal death to kill every Zephyrian in the galaxy." Susan returned to her laboratory and began mass production of the most terrible weapon humanity had ever created. She worked 18 hours a day, driven by memories of small coffins and crying parents. Every batch of virus she created would avenge more dead children. Admiral Roy Jackson received daily reports from across the war zone. Human forces were advancing faster than anyone had thought possible. The Zephyrians, once confident in their crystalline armor and advanced technology, were being slaughtered wherever humans found them. "Sir, we're intercepting Zephyrian communications," his intelligence officer reported. "They're calling for help from other alien species. The Altarians and the Vegan Confederacy have both been asked to mediate peace talks." Roy laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Tell any alien government that contacts us the same thing. We don't want peace. We want extinction. Anyone Who helps the Zephyrians becomes our enemy too. The message was received clearly across the galaxy. Other alien species watched in horror as humanity systematically destroyed the Zephyrian collective. When the Altarian hegemony offered to host peace negotiations, human diplomats responded by sending them footage of the Sunshine Valley attack. The Altarians quickly withdrew their offer. Captain Nancy Wright piloted her stealth ship through a Zephyrian asteroid mining operation. Thousands of workers carved precious metals from the space rocks. They had no weapons, no defenses. They were just trying to earn a living for their crystal families. Nancy armed her ship's missile systems. Each warhead contained enough explosive power to vaporize an entire asteroid. She had 47 missiles and 47 targets. "This is for Danny," she whispered, thinking of the 6-year-old boy who wanted to be a pilot. She fired the first missile. "This is for Sophie." The second missile launched. "This is for baby Tom." The third followed. Nancy continued until all her weapons were gone and every asteroid was debris. Thousands of Zephyrian workers died in space, their bodies frozen and scattered among the rocks they had been mining. Nancy felt nothing but satisfaction as she turned her ship toward home. On the Zephyrian homeworld of Crystallia, Supreme Commander Vathiak watched his empire collapse. Human fleets were destroying everything they could find. Colony worlds went silent one by one. Mining operations were wiped out. Even trading posts in neutral space were being attacked and destroyed. "My lord, we must surrender," his aide pleaded. "The humans are exterminating our entire species. Surely they will show mercy if we apologize for the attack on their children." Vathiak looked at the tactical display. Of the collective's 47 star systems, only 12 remained under Zephyrian control. The human advance was unstoppable. Their technology had improved dramatically in just 6 months. Their tactics were ruthless, beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. "Send another surrender offer," Vathiak ordered. "Offer them everything. Our technology, our worlds, our lives as slaves, anything to make them stop killing us." The surrender message was transmitted across space to the human fleet commanders. It was detailed and desperate. The Zephyrians offered complete submission. They would disarm entirely. They would become a protectorate under human rule. They would pay reparations for 1,000 years. Admiral Roy Jackson received the message while his fleet was bombarding a Zephyrian space station. He read the surrender offer twice, then deleted it. "Sir, shouldn't we at least consider their terms?" his aide asked. Roy turned to look at the young officer. "Son, did you see the pictures from Sunshine Valley?" "Yes, sir. It was horrible." "Those children offered to surrender too. They begged for their lives under that falling building. Did the Zephyrians listen?" Roy paused. "We don't negotiate with child killers. We eliminate them." The bombing of the space station continued. When it was over, nothing remained but floating debris and the frozen bodies of aliens who had thought they could murder human children and face only conventional warfare in return. President Helen Rodriguez addressed the human population that evening. The broadcast reached every colony, every ship, every outpost in human space. Behind her was a map showing Zephyrian territory. Most of it was now colored red, indicating complete human control. "My fellow humans," Helen began. 6 months ago they killed our children. Today we have killed 6 billion of them in return. This is not revenge, this is justice. This is what happens when someone hurts our young. The crowd watching the broadcast cheered. Children waved flags showing human ships destroying alien vessels. Parents held pictures of the Sunshine Valley victims and shouted for more Zephyrian blood. "We will not stop until every last one of them is dead," Helen continued. "They wanted to teach us fear by murdering innocents. Instead, they have taught the galaxy to fear us." 2 years had passed since the children died at Sunshine Valley. The Zephyrian collective was dying. Of their original 47 star systems, only 3 remained. Their population had fallen from billions to less than 10 million. They hid in deep space bunkers and underground cities, but humanity always found them. Admiral Roy Jackson stood on the bridge of the Federation flagship Retribution. Around him, the largest human fleet ever assembled prepared for what would likely be the final battle of the war. Ahead of them was the last major Zephyrian fleet, 30 crystal ships trying desperately to protect their homeworld. The alien ships looked different now. Once they had been beautiful, perfect works of art that caught starlight and turned it into rainbows. Now they were patched and scarred. Broken sections had been repaired with metal instead of crystal. They looked desperate, like wounded animals making their last stand. "Admiral, the Zephyrian flagship is trying to contact us." "Communications," Officer Linda Price reported. "They want to discuss surrender terms." Roy did not even pause to think. "Tell them we stopped accepting surrenders 2 years ago, then target their command ship with everything we have." The battle was brief and one-sided. Human technology had advanced dramatically during the war. Their weapons were designed specifically to kill Zephyrians. Their armor could withstand anything the aliens could throw at them. Most importantly, the humans fought with absolute determination, while the Zephyrians fought only for survival. One by one, the crystal ships were destroyed. They tried to retreat, but human ships were faster. They tried to hide in the asteroid fields, but human sensors found them. When the last Zephyrian vessel exploded in a shower of rainbow fragments, Roy felt no joy, only the cold satisfaction of a job nearly finished. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface," Linda reported. "It's Supreme Commander Vithak. He's offering complete and unconditional surrender of all remaining Zephyrian forces." Roy looked at the blue-green world below them. This was Crystallia, the Zephyrian homeworld. Billions had once lived here in cities that looked like they were made of frozen music. Now only a few million remained, hiding in deep underground shelters. "Admiral," the alien commander's voice came through the speakers. "Please, we surrender completely. We will accept any terms. We will become your slaves. We will give you everything we have. Just please stop killing us." Roy activated the communication system. "Commander Vithak, let me ask you something. When you bombed our orphanage, did you accept the surrender of the children trapped under the falling building?" There was silence from the planet. "I didn't think so," Roy continued. "We don't negotiate with child killers. We exterminate them. Begin orbital bombardment of all population centers." The human fleet opened fire. Massive energy beams struck the planet's surface, vaporizing entire cities in seconds. Underground shelters were cracked open and flooded with killing radiation. The beautiful crystal forests that had grown for thousands of years were turned to glass and ash. On Earth, Dr. Susan Blake put the finishing touches on her greatest and most terrible creation. The crystal plague was more than just a biological weapon. It was a force that would spread through subspace itself, seeking out and destroying any trace of crystalline life within 100 light-years. The weapon would make entire regions of space uninhabitable for Zephyrians. Even if some managed to hide in the deepest corners of the galaxy, the plague would eventually find them. It was designed to ensure that the alien species could never recover, never rebuild, never threaten human children again. President Helen Rodriguez stood in the secure briefing room deep beneath the White House. Around her were the most powerful people in human space. Military commanders, intelligence chiefs, and weapons experts all waited for her decision. "Dr. Blake, explain the weapon to us one more time," Helen requested. Susan activated the holographic display. The crystal plague spreads through subspace, at faster-than-light speeds. It will seek out any biological signature matching Zephyrian DNA patterns. Once it finds a target, it dissolves the crystalline structures that make up their bodies at the molecular level. "What about side effects?" asked General Scott Adams. "There will be some disruption to subspace communications in the affected area," Susan admitted. "And any silicon-based technology might be damaged, but the effect is specifically targeted at Zephyrian biology. Other life forms will be unaffected." Helen nodded. "How long until deployment?" "The weapon is ready now, Madam President. We just need your authorization to proceed." Helen thought about the memorial services she had attended. Hundreds of small coffins, thousands of grieving parents, children who would never grow up because aliens had decided to target the innocent. Authorization granted. Deploy the crystal plague immediately. Captain Nancy Wright piloted the stealth ship Silence through the debris fields that had once been the Zephyrian trade routes. Her mission was simple, but terrible. She carried the crystal plague in a specially shielded container. Her orders were to release it at the coordinates of the last Zephyrian stronghold. The journey took 3 weeks. Nancy traveled through star systems that had once been full of alien life. Now they were graveyards. Shattered space stations drifted in the void. Dead worlds orbited their stars in silence. Humanity had been thorough in their extermination campaign. Approaching target coordinates, Nancy reported to Fleet Command. Crystal plague deployment in 30 seconds. She thought about the children who had died at Sunshine Valley. Danny with his drawings of spaceships. Sophie with her endless questions about science. Baby Tom learning to walk. All of them gone because aliens thought they could break human spirit by murdering innocents. Deploying Crystal Plague now, Nancy announced. The weapon released silently into space. There was no visible effect, no explosion or flash of light. But within minutes, the plague began to spread through subspace, moving faster than any ship could travel. It reached across star systems, seeking its crystalline targets. On the mining station at Tau Ceti, 300 Zephyrian workers felt the first effects. Their bodies began to tingle, then burn. They looked at their hands and saw their crystal skin starting to dissolve. They tried to call for help, but their communication equipment was already failing as the plague disrupted their silicon-based technology. Within an hour, they were all dead. Their bodies crumbled to dust that was blown away by the station's air. Recycling systems. The scientific outpost at Wolf 359 received a desperate transmission from Tau Ceti before their own equipment failed. The message was brief and terrified. The humans had found a way to kill them all. The plague was spreading everywhere. There was nowhere to run. Dr. Krythe was the last Zephyrian at the research station. She was old, even by alien standards, and had spent her life studying the stars. She had never wanted war with humanity. She had voted against the attack on the orphanage, but that did not matter now. As her body began to dissolve, Krythe sent one final message into space. It was an apology to the human children who had died. She said she was sorry that her people had chosen such evil. She begged forgiveness for crimes she had not committed but belonged to her species. The message reached Earth 3 days later. Admiral Roy Jackson listened to the alien's final words and felt nothing. Apologies meant nothing. The children were still dead. Across the galaxy, the last pockets of Zephyrian life were found and eliminated by the crystal plague. A trading post in the Vega system went silent. A hidden colony near Barnard's star sent out a brief distress call before the transmission cut off. Refugee ships trying to escape to neutral space simply vanished from sensors as their crews dissolved inside their vessels. The plague spread for 6 months, following subspace currents to every corner of former Zephyrian territory. It found aliens hiding in asteroid mines and space stations. It tracked down escape pods drifting in the void. It eliminated research teams on distant worlds and diplomats in neutral ports. When the spreading finally stopped, xenobiologist teams were sent to confirm the results. They found empty ships drifting in space, their controls covered with fine crystal dust that had once been living beings. They discovered abandoned colonies where buildings stood intact but no life remained. They explored research stations where experiments had been left running by scientists who had simply dissolved at their workstations. The confirmation came back to Earth 6 months later. The crystal plague had been completely successful. Genetic analysis of the dust found throughout former Zephyrian space confirmed that it had once been living aliens. No intact DNA remained. No possibility of cloning or resurrection existed. President Helen Rodriguez received the final report while visiting the Sunshine Valley Memorial. She stood among the gardens where children had once played, reading the confirmation that their killers were extinct. "It's finished," she said quietly to Admiral Roy Jackson, who had accompanied her to the memorial. "Every last one of them is dead." Roy nodded. "The children can rest now." But even as they spoke, other alien species across the galaxy were watching and learning. They had seen what humanity could do when their children were threatened. They had witnessed the complete extinction of an intelligent species. The message was clear and terrifying. 5 years had passed since the last Zephyrian died. The galaxy was a different place now. Where once there had been 47 star systems full of crystalline life, There were now human colonies. New cities rose from the ashes of alien worlds. Human children played in parks built on planets where no human had ever walked before the war. Ambassador Kevin Brown walked into the Galactic Council chamber on the neutral world of Nexus Prime. He represented humanity for the first time since the war began. The other delegates watched him with barely hidden fear. Some trembled as he took his seat. Others refused to make eye contact. The chamber was smaller than it used to be. The Zephyrian delegates were gone, of course. Their crystal chairs sat, empty, covered in dust. But other species had also withdrawn from galactic politics. The Rigel Confederation had closed their borders. The Deneb Trade Alliance had stopped all contact with other races. Fear had made the galaxy a much quieter place. The Terran Federation wishes to discuss new protocols for interstellar relations, Kevin announced. His voice was calm and pleasant, but every alien in the room understood the threat behind his words. Delegate Thaxkar of the Altarian hegemony shifted nervously in his environmental suit. His species breathed methane and looked like giant insects. Before the war, he would have spoken boldly in council meetings. Now he whispered, "Ambassador Brown, surely you understand our concerns. The complete elimination of the Zephyrian species has created difficulties for the rest of us." Kevin smiled. It was not a warm expression. The Zephyrian collective chose to target human children. They received exactly the response such an action deserved. We trust no other species will make similar mistakes. The threat was clear. Attack human civilians, especially children, and face extinction. Every delegate in the chamber had watched the war footage. They had seen entire planets turn to ash. They had witnessed the power of weapons that could spread through space itself, hunting down every member of a species. "Of course not," Thexgar stammered. "The Altarian hegemony has always valued peaceful relations with humanity." "Excellent," Kevin replied. "Then you won't object to our new trade agreements. We'll be taking control of the former Zephyrian mining operations in your sector. For security purposes, of course." Thexgar wanted to object. Those mining operations were in Altarian space, protected by treaties that were thousands of years old. But he remembered the images of human ships destroying everything in their path. He remembered the silence that had fallen over Zephyrian space. That seems reasonable," he said quietly. One by one, the other delegates agreed to humanity's demands. Trade routes were redistributed in humanity's favor. Territory disputes were settled with humans as the clear winners. Military restrictions were placed on alien fleets while human ships faced no limitations at all. The meeting lasted 6 hours. When it ended, humanity had gained more power than any single species had ever held in galactic history, and they had done it not through negotiation or diplomacy, but through the simple demonstration of what happened to those who opposed them. On Earth, the Sunshine Valley Memorial had become the most visited site on the planet. Millions of people came every year to see the names carved in black stone. The gardens around the memorial were always full of flowers left by visitors. Children from across human space came on school trips to learn about the day that changed everything. General Paul Stevens, now retired, often brought his grandchildren to the memorial. The old soldier would tell them stories about the war, carefully edited to focus on honor and duty, rather than the systematic extermination he had overseen. "Grandpa Paul, why did the bad aliens hurt the children?" his granddaughter Emma asked. She was 6 years old, the same age Danny had been when he died. Paul knelt down beside her. "Because they thought it would make us afraid, sweetheart. They thought if they hurt our youngest and most innocent, we would give up fighting. But we didn't give up, did we? No, Emma. We showed them that no one, anywhere in the galaxy, can hurt human children and survive." Emma nodded seriously. "Good. Children should be safe." Paul hugged her tightly. She would grow up in a galaxy where every alien species knew that human children were untouchable. She would never have to fear what Danny and Sophie and baby Tom had faced. The price for that safety had been terrible, but Paul believed it was worth paying. Dr. Susan Blake worked in her new laboratory on Mars. She was no longer developing weapons to kill Zephyrians. There were no Zephyrians left to kill. Instead, She studied other alien species, looking for weaknesses and developing contingency plans. Her current project focused on the Vegan Confederacy, a species of plant-like beings who lived in the galaxy's eastern spiral arm. They had never shown hostility toward humanity, but Susan's job was to be prepared for any possibility. "Computer, analyze the cellular structure of vegan tissue sample 47, she commanded. The laboratory's artificial intelligence began its work. Within hours, Susan would know exactly how to design a biological weapon that could eliminate the vegans if they ever threatened human interests. Similar research was being conducted on dozens of other species. The crystal plague technology remained humanity's most closely guarded secret. Only a few dozen people knew how to create it, and they were protected by the highest levels of security. But the knowledge existed, ready to be used if any species made the same mistake the Zephyrians had made. Captain Jake Morrison, now Admiral Morrison, commanded the Terran exploration fleet. His ships pushed into unexplored regions of the galaxy, claiming new worlds for humanity. When they encountered alien species, first contact always included a detailed explanation of what had happened to the last aliens who had attacked human civilians. The psychological effect was immediate and profound. New species signed trade agreements, quickly and on terms heavily favoring humanity. They offered tribute and promises of friendship. Most importantly, they made sure their own people understood that humans were not to be threatened under any circumstances. "Admiral, we've made contact with a new species in the Sagittarius Arm," reported Captain Lisa Park from the exploration ship Pioneer. "They call themselves the Crystalline Collective." Jake's blood ran cold. "Crystalline? Are they related to the Zephyrians?" "Unknown, sir. They appear to have a similar biology, but their culture seems different. They're offering peaceful contact and seem very eager to establish good relations." Jake thought about it for a moment. The galaxy was full of silicon-based life forms. Not all of them were connected to the extinct Zephyrians, but the name was unfortunate. "Inform them that they need to choose a different name for their species," Jake ordered. "Anything with the word crystalline in it makes humans nervous. Suggest they call themselves something else." "Sir, don't they have the right to call themselves whatever they want?" Jake's voice turned cold. "Captain, we just finished exterminating one crystalline species. Do you really think we should take chances with another one?" Lisa understood immediately. "Yes, sir, I'll suggest they rebrand themselves as the Silicon Cooperative or something similar." The new aliens agreed to the name change within hours. They had heard the stories of the Zephyrian War. They knew what happened to species that made humanity uncomfortable. President Helen Rodriguez stood before the Earth Assembly, giving her final speech before retirement. Behind her was a holographic display showing humanity's expansion across the galaxy. In 5 years, they had claimed more territory than most species acquired in centuries. "My fellow humans," Helen began, "when I took office, we were just one species among many in this galaxy. We followed the rules that others had written. We accepted the limitations that others imposed on us. We tried to be good galactic citizens." She paused, letting her gaze sweep across the assembly. "Then they murdered our children. They thought they could break our spirit by targeting the innocent. Instead, they awakened something that the galaxy had never seen before. They awakened humanity's protective fury." The assembly applauded. Behind them, screens showed images of human colonies on former Zephyrian worlds. Children played in parks that had been built on the graves of an extinct species. Today, no alien dares to threaten a human child. Today, when we speak, the galaxy listens. Today we are no longer just another species trying to survive among the stars. We are the apex predators of this galaxy. The transformation was complete. Humanity had changed from peaceful explorers to the galaxy's dominant military power. Art, literature, and entertainment all celebrated themes of strength and protection. Children learned about the war in school, understanding that their safety came from their species' willingness to commit absolute violence against those who threatened them. Other alien civilizations watched and learned. They studied human history, trying to understand how such a peaceful species could become so terrifyingly effective at warfare. They found their answer in humanity's protection instinct. Humans would tolerate attacks on themselves, but threaten their young, and they became unstoppable. Trade flowed according to human preferences. Territory was divided as humans desired. Disputes were settled in humanity's favor. The galaxy had learned to fear the species from the third planet of Sol, and that fear had become the foundation of a new order